vote as the ballot.
C-SPAN 2
are now closed around the 5 boroughs. You're going to see results very soon at the bottom of your screen. But remember, the results that you see will be the first choice votes, especially in the race for mayor. If no candidate gets 50% tonight, we'll have to wait a full week before the Board of Elections runs ranked choice voting tabulations. As we start up our election ticker, you're going to see on your screen that the Associated Press uses a number that is called expected vote as the ballots are counted. Now, that number is based on turnout in recent elections. Shortly after 9, the results of early voting and most absentee votes will be released, and you'll see those votes very quickly on your screen. There's typically a short lag between the count of early votes and the count of ballots that have been cast today. Also, as a reminder, absentee ballots can be postmarked as late as today, so there will be a few outstanding absentee votes to be counted after tonight, which could matter in a race that is very close. As we wait for the results to come in, let's quickly check in with the top 2 mayoral campaigns, starting with Bernadette Hogan at the Zohran Mamdani campaign in Long Island City. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. That's right. Polls just closed at the Mamdani campaign. We have not seen the candidate yet, but I am here with City Councilman Chi Osei. He represents District 36, Bed-Stuy, and you were at a couple of poll sites today trying to get out the vote for Zohran Mamdani. Talk to me about the people that you spoke with, and what was your pitch to them?
Absolutely. So Bed-Stuy is a neighborhood that's seeing a lot of change, both gentrifying as well as a very established black homeowner voter base. And I posted up at a site where a lot of the traditional black residents go to vote, and I saw that in my election 4 years ago, and I was shocked to see that it wasn't even a mix of feelings around Mamdani or Cuomo. There was a lot of support for Assemblymember Mamdani at this poll site.
And you also were one of the youngest elected to the City Council at age 23. Was there any concern from any of these voters about his alleged inexperience, his only 2 terms in the State Assembly?
That was not brought up once at these poll sites. You know, there was one reference around defund the police, but that was the only thing that I heard as a concern from these voters. And as soon as, myself or one of the other canvassers pushed back about that claim, that voter was easily persuaded to voting for Mamdani.
Right, and talk to me about Andrew Cuomo, because he does poll the best amongst black voters. Why do you think that is, and why do you think that was a different story when you talked to those voters earlier today in Bed-Stuy?
Absolutely. Well, I think a lot of older voters, a lot of older black voters have heard the Cuomo name for some time now, not only through Andrew Cuomo, but Mario Cuomo. And during this race, I think they wanted to vote for a name that they recognize on the ballot, and that was Cuomo. But I think over the past couple of weeks, that's changed through the rigorous campaign that Mamdani has been running. His extremely well debate performance, as well as the ground game and reaching voters who have not been reached by the Cuomo campaign in person. I think that really changed the tides in terms of what I was witnessing on the ground at the poll sites today.
Now, regardless of the outcome, say Mamdani is not successful tonight, would you like to see him continue to go on? He does not have the Working Families Party line yet, but would you like to see the WFP consider or give it to him to go on into the general election?
Zohran Mamdani and his entire campaign team ran a masterclass type campaign this election season. I truly believe that they will win this election. I don't even want to talk about any other ballot line come in November. I do believe I will be casting a ballot or casting a vote for Zohran Mamdani on the Democratic ballot line come November.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilman. So, Errol, again, we're talking to Chi Osei, Democratic City Councilman from Bed-Stuy, saying that he was able to possibly turn a couple of voters in favor of Zohran Mamdani against Andrew Cuomo. Back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Bernadette. We'll get back to you a little bit later. Right now, we're going to talk to our Bobby Kuza at the big board. As the results start to come in, he can start to sort of show us what we are seeing.
I mean, Errol, this is exactly what we talked about. We talked about this first tranche of numbers that we were going to get. It was going to be all the early vote and the mail-in votes that have been processed as of today, and we knew that those numbers were going to skew towards Zohran Mamdani. I mean, you heard our Bob Hart say earlier that this could be the high watermark for Zohran Mamdani, and sure enough, he's up by 7 points once those votes are processed. Now, we're going to see the day of votes, the ballots that were voted today. We're going to see those begin to roll in as well. But the initial numbers came in very strong for Zohran Mamdani, but that will probably change as the night goes on. As we've discussed, the day of votes tend to favor former Governor Andrew Cuomo. But right now, Zohran Mamdani with 43% to Andrew Cuomo's 34% and 13% for Brad Lander in third place. So I think we're going to get more data pretty quickly. By the way, Adrienne Adams, City Council Speaker, in fourth right now with just 4%, low single digits. I think over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, we're going to see the numbers really begin to climb, and then we'll get a better sense for where we might land at the end of the night.
Well, yeah, can we see some of the other candidates? Because this is, almost like a sort of a capsule. This is the early vote, right? So how did some of the other candidates do in that early voting period?
Well, clearly Brad Lander did himself some favors with everything that's happened in the past week, right? He got arrested at immigration court, became a national story. He had a pretty strong debate performance. He, got the, not the endorsement per se, but, he got a lot of support from this New York Times opinion panel. And he's at 13%, which is a little bit higher than he had been doing in some of those recent polls. So those are clearly the top three. There's some space between Brad Lander and Adrienne Adams in fourth place. Scott Stringer in fifth, just 2%. And then everybody else is down at about 1% or below. Zelnor Myrie, Whitney Tilson, Jessica Ramos, who effectively dropped her campaign, and Michael Blake with only about 1,400 votes total, looking at the raw vote total. So we talked about this being a two-man race, and that is really what it looks like it's going to come down to, although we should point out Brad Lander in third place. He's going to accumulate some votes, and assuming this then goes to a ranked choice tabulation a week from now, it's going to make a big difference who those Brad Lander voters ranked further down their ballot. If they had Mamdani ahead of Cuomo, those votes will then go to Mamdani once the tabulation is run. So, a lot of moving pieces here with ranked choice voting. I think the better that Brad Lander does, the better it becomes for Zohran Mamdani tonight.
Okay, very interesting. I have Courtney Gross here with me in studio, and in some ways not a surprise, right, that Mamdani would do well, but it really sort of sets a marker, right? If he's 10 points ahead now, 9 to 10 points ahead, if he can maintain that throughout the rest of the count, that's the victory he's looking for.
He's certainly in a good position. We know that, like Bobby Kusu was saying, in polls that his voters were much more likely to vote early. And we've seen some really interesting analysis from WNYC and Gothamist, who's really broken down where this early vote was coming from, a lot of it coming from Brownstone, Brooklyn, which is obviously kind of Mamdani territory, including some analysis that showed of the early vote that came in, which was almost 400,000, which is almost double the amount that we saw in 2021, that a quarter of those early votes, which is what we're looking at now, were new voters, people who hadn't voted within the last decade, potentially, new people who had just moved to New York City, or these young voters that we clearly saw came out who are interested in the Mamdani candidacy and are out there supporting him. It shows he's got some enthusiasm. He's got some grassroots support. I mean, we've heard the lines on the campaign trail for so long that they've knocked on 1 million doors, that they have 40,000 volunteers. And I think that this is what we're showing in these numbers. Will Cuomo be able to catch up? It's early. This is a percentage of the vote. His voters are more likely to vote today, but I think what we've seen in Ayanna Harry's reporting, who's obviously covering Andrew Cuomo throughout the day, is that there was, my interpretation is a little bit of a sense of urgency from the Cuomo campaign saying, it's hot out, please get out to vote. He originally was going to vote early, and then he changed his whole schedule to vote on actual primary day to make sure and encourage his voters to get out there, even though it's obviously brutally hot out there.
Yeah, to this moment, actually, still in the 90s. We've got a race to call. New York 1 is projecting Jumaane Williams as the winner of the Democratic primary election for public advocate. In some ways, Courtney, this wasn't all that much of a surprise, but it looks like it was an overwhelming victory. And in this kind of a case, there's no ranked choice tabulation if you're over 50%.
Yeah, so he is obviously in the clear here. Jennifer Rajkumar was trying to challenge him, clearly a very close ally of Eric Adams. We've detailed and documented over the many months leading up to this primary how often Jennifer Rajkumar was with Eric Adams at press conferences. Our other colleagues in the media have done the same. I wonder if some people might see this race in particular as some sort of litmus test on the Adams administration, because Jennifer Raj-Kumar is clearly so close to the mayor. This was a race that many people didn't pay that much attention to. People thought that Jumaane Williams was clearly in a strong position, wasn't necessarily at risk of losing his seat.
Right, right. And so even with only what the Board of Elections says is about 14%, a little under 14% of the vote of the scanners having been fed in, that lead is so commanding when you're talking about over 274,000 votes for Jumaane Williams just in the early voting period. There's no way to catch up. Let's check in with our Ayanna Harry. She's at the West Village celebration for Andrew Cuomo. That's his campaign headquarters tonight. Ayanna, what is the latest there?
Yeah, Errol, this is not only the campaign headquarters for Andrew Cuomo, this is also the very room where Andrew Cuomo launched his campaign for mayor just about 4 months ago. Tonight is an opportunity for Andrew Cuomo to gather his supporters, the people who have endorsed him, the people who have campaigned and volunteered for him, to say thank you. And I have one of those people here tonight with us, State Senator Jessica Ramos. You were on the ballot today, the first woman in this race, but there was a point in a moment where you decided to endorse Andrew Cuomo. Walk me through what you were thinking at that point and why you felt it was so important to tell your supporters to now vote for Andrew Cuomo.
Well, for me, there was a clear point in time where the race came down to two people. That's just a very sober view of where we've been headed. And so I wanted to make a choice and a recommendation for my neighbors, for our communities, to be able to vote for a mayor that has experience, that, you know, we can know is going to be able to put together a good team and protect us from the attacks that we've already been getting from Washington, D.C., whether it's our immigrant population, whether it's the unlawful defunding of our education, of infrastructure projects. These are all critical things to New York's well-being and the progress that we should expect over the next 4 years. And between those two men, there's only one who we know can deliver on that work.
I want to talk about your neighbors in Elmhurst, Corona, Jackson Heights. How did the Cuomo campaign reach them? Did they do enough to reach those folks? And what are the key issues that matter to the people in your district?
You know, well, throughout this campaign, we've seen the Cuomo campaign really engage with Black and Latino voters and Asian voters. We want to make sure that there is ample opportunity for not only jobs, but careers. There's a reason we're at the Carpenters Union today. This has been a race always about tackling the affordability crisis, the climate crisis, the mental health crisis with good jobs, with union jobs. And so that to me has really been something that resonates with voters in my neighborhoods and across the 5 boroughs.
And you felt there was a visible presence from the Cuomo campaign in those neighborhoods?
I absolutely believe people were engaged. I saw clergy engaged with the campaign, our district leaders who are always out there doing the good unpaid work. That's important. And I think even though we may not know the final results tonight, I'm hopeful that the final results will be in our favor.
And what have you said to Jessica Ramos supporters who have been a bit disappointed by your decision to back Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah, no, I completely understand that people can be confused, can be disappointed. Some might not understand why. But to me, and I'll continue to have these conversations, I am happy to talk about why ultimately this was an important decision, keeping in mind everything that's happening in New York City right now. It was about him being the person at the right time, in the right place, at the right moment to protect New York from everything that Trump has been doing and what he's threatened to do.
Okay, State Senator Jessica Ramos, also a candidate in this Democratic primary race for mayor, but you have now supported Andrew Cuomo. We appreciate your time. And Daryl, again, we are here inside of the Carpenters Union Hall. The doors opened at about 9 p.m. We're seeing some campaign donors, campaign volunteers begin to trickle in. A lot more people expected in the room. They do have New York One on the TVs, and everyone here, they have been watching these results come in. There's a lot of anxiety in the room, but also a lot of anticipation. Errol?
Okay, so now, Ayanna, are the folks who are coming in, do they look like they were out working today, or are they just kind of showing up for the party?
No, these are the people who their work was through writing checks for the Cuomo campaign. So these are the people who have supported through donations, and they're getting an opportunity to say, thank you. This is how Andrew Cuomo is saying thank you, giving them sort of the earliest access to the room. We expect the room to be filled with even more people within the coming hours.
Okay, we'll talk again a little bit later, Ayanna. Thank you. We have 2 races to call for you. New York One is projecting that Vanessa Gibson has won the Democratic primary election for Bronx Borough President. And New York One is also projecting that Antonio Reynoso has won the Democratic primary election for Brooklyn Borough President. I'm joined again by our Courtney Gross. No surprises there either. 2 incumbents defeating some challengers who were, themselves elected officials, or I should say people who have run before, and put up pretty fierce challenges.
Yeah, particularly in the Bronx, Rafael Salamanca, the city councilman who's term limited, was facing off against Vanessa Gibson. He declined to participate in a debate here on New York One. Vanessa Gibson, I think, was running as if she certainly had a real race. Salamanca is well known, the land use chair at the city council. That's an incredibly powerful position, controls what projects get to go through and what projects don't get to go through. So obviously you're going to be close with developers and, perhaps a lot of different neighborhoods all across the city. But clearly, she came out ahead tonight. Not altogether surprising, but, there's always, remember she was here not too long ago when Salamanca decided not to participate in our debate, and I was talking to her, and she's like, no matter who the competitor is, you always run like it's a real race.
Yeah, you don't want to try and change whatever somebody's strategy is, but we always encourage people to come in and debate. Let people hear what your vision is. It can only help you, and we're sad that he didn't take advantage of that. Let's go to Bobby Kuza at the big board. He's got some information for us about the controller's race.
Yeah, we're taking a look at City Comptroller Mark Levine and Justin Brannan, the leading candidates in this one. Mark Levine right now with a pretty convincing lead, up 13 points on Justin Brannan. Not really a huge surprise. I think if you had to choose a favorite or a front runner in this race, it would have had to have been Mark Levine, the Manhattan Borough President, a relatively high-profile elected official. But Justin Brannan himself got a lot of support in this race, including from the progressive left. We saw him endorsed by the likes of Bernie Sanders and a number of other left-leaning advocacy groups and elected officials. And it seemed like maybe in the closing days and closing weeks of the race, he had begun to kind of narrow that gap. The only polling in this race came about a month ago, and I believe it had Mark Levine up by about 20 points. So compared to that, Justin Brannan has sort of narrowed the margin, but right now Mark Levine with a pretty comfortable lead in the early going of this race.
And there was another candidate in that race, right? Do you have numbers for Kevin Parker?
Yes, not to give Kevin Parker short shrift, but he's landed only down at 6%. He's a state senator from Brooklyn. He has run for office many times before, and some of the polling actually had showed him in the teens, but right now down at 6%. So he's in 4th place, actually, in this 4-man race.
Yeah, so the way people think, and I'm sure some of Brannan's supporters are thinking, it's like, well, look, if we've got some second-choice votes coming from those 2 other candidates, this could, in fact, be a close race by the time the numbers are all counted.
Right, and this is one of those races where we're not only going to be looking at the margin, we're going to be looking at how close this number is to 50%. Because if this race was over right now, obviously Mark Levine would have, a significant lead, but with less than 50%. He couldn't announce he was the victor. This would have to wait until next Tuesday in ranked choice voting. And in theory, like you said, if all of Ismail Malave's votes and all of Kevin Parker's votes went to Brannan, which is unlikely, but it is, a mathematically possible possibility, then in that case he could actually surpass Mark Levine. Of course, that's the way ranked choice works in theory, but in practice, it doesn't always mean you can make up that much ground. We saw it almost happen in the mayor's race 4 years ago with Eric Adams, but that may have been a little bit of an outlier. With this kind of lead, it's very hard for the 2nd or 3rd place finisher to make up that ground.
Got it. And while you're there, Bobby, could we look at some of the numbers for the borough president's races that we just called? We gave the top line number about who won, but I'm very curious as to of what the percentages look like.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at Vanessa Gibson. So I got to say, this race I thought was going to be a lot closer because Rafael Salamanca, you know, relatively well-known city councilman from the South Bronx. He's being term limited out of office. So, you know, gunning for Vanessa Gibson, who is a relatively popular borough president. She's been a lawmaker in the Bronx for a long time. It's not that often that you see a sitting elected official like this, who's pretty well liked, actually being primaried by another prominent elected official. But Rafael Salamanca got a lot of money in this race. He had some endorsements. But in the end, Vanessa Gibson seems to be running away with this thing, not particularly close. And then in the other one we were looking at was in Brooklyn, Antonio Reynoso. Also, you know, didn't really seem as though he was going to have to sweat this race. Kari Edwards had some endorsements in this race. He had run for this office before, but Antonio Reynoso, a pretty well-regarded borough president, and you see here the difference is about 61 points. So Antonio Reynoso cruising to re-election in this one.
Okay, thanks very much, Bobby. We're going to go out in the field now to our Samantha Liebman, who's also been focused on the city controller's race. She's with Mark Levine's campaign in the West Village. Sam, what is the latest there?
Well, the mood is upbeat right now. People are just starting to trickle in to see the results. Of course, they're very happy right now that Mark Levine does have the early lead. This has been overshadowed by the mayor's race, of course. The controller's position, however, very important, especially in light of what is happening in Washington. And really, these two candidates, Mark Levine and Justin Brannan, have, yes, they're running against each other, but really they've been taking aim at President Trump, especially after the federal government clawed back that $80 million in reimbursements to help with the migrant crisis. So that has been a big factor in this race, but also how they are going to handle the city's pensions as well as other things, housing. They've been focusing on that as well. We spoke to Levine's campaign manager, Matt Rubin, about the campaign and what they've been focusing on since they are so similar in their policy positions.
Scott Stringer's campaign, where he is addressing some supporters. Let's listen in.
About how we were going to rise up together. And then all of those street corners that we all stood on and the subway stops that we did, it was always about people wanting to do better and accepting the best that we can be for each other. I believe to my core that public service is the most honorable profession. And when and through this campaign, what I've loved is watching the young people throughout the city campaigning for different candidates, not just for mayor, but for city council and controller and borough president, the young people who work for us, banging doors and campaigning every day. They represent the future of this city. And you know what they're saying? They want change. And they're not willing to wait, and neither should we. We should demand excellence again for our city. And that is why we are here tonight. Now, I have to just say, I've been with a lot of you for decades, and we've won some and we've lost some. But at the end of every campaign, we acknowledge that we just like this, and we're good at it. And that is what the West Side has always been to me, and that is what people in city government has always been to me. So I just want to say to all of you, better days are coming. Look, let me give you just a quick state of the race. So based on early returns, I'm going to need a late surge around 11 o'clock, okay? So will you stick around? But whoever ends up winning this primary, and we're probably not going to know tonight, we also have to recognize that once we have a mayor, a new mayor, we have to be part of this. So we all have to go back and do what we've always done. We have to organize on the most local level. We have to organize our friends and neighbors. You know what we're facing in Washington. You know what we're going to face as we constitute a new government in New York City. We have to be in this, all of us together. And let me tell you one thing. I ain't going anywhere. Many of you think that this long series that we've been on, this Netflix series, you may wonder whether we're getting canceled. But I'm telling you, watch the trailer coming soon. So I just want to say some personal things. First of all, you don't do a campaign by yourself. And while I can't acknowledge every single person in this room, many of you have been with me such a long time, you know in my heart I will over the coming weeks. But I do want to first start out recognizing my entire family. First, Max and Miles, who are not here tonight, but are watching on TV. Miles said to me, you know, Dad, this is my last campaign, and I said, then as I left the house tonight, he goes, we're not going to do this again, are we? I want to thank somebody who I just love her so much. And one of the great things we've enjoyed in this campaign is we've been traveling together on a regular basis, going to all the events, the house parties, the fundraising, the street corner stuff. I really do think the wrong person in our family runs for office. If we were smart, we would have just elected Elise and be done with it. But I am very, very lucky to have you, and I know that. And everyone here is thinking, yes, you're right. So, and I want to say, look, we were a small but mighty campaign staff, and I just want to thank the people on the ground who are with us every day. First and foremost, the person who inspired me to run and then literally left everything on the field, somebody who had to take her own personal attacks, sacrificed so much, somebody who I think Elise and I is right. She's just part of our family. Please acknowledge Elaine Fan for the amazing work she did. As our campaign chief of staff, she was in it every single day. And our chief advisor, John Liu, where is John? Is he here? He has been an amazing. He has been amazing. I thank him. His advice has been incredible. I think I just want to say thank you. I also want to thank somebody who's been with me literally in public service for as long as I've been in elective office. I want to thank the person who really day to day just kept this campaign together. Please really congratulate Susanna Vickers for her amazing work. Our director of field operations, Dan Johnson, our deputy field director, Ryan Williams, Leah Carter, who managed the books. See you at the campaign finance board hearings. I want to thank Javier. And
former city controller Scott Stringer thanking his supporters. We're going to head out to Queens now. That's where the current city council speaker, Adrienne Adams, has her campaign headquarters. And our Kelly Mena is standing by. Kelly.
Hi, Errol. That's right. We're still waiting on the candidate to get here. The speaker, she should be here shortly. But we are joined by our top and most visible supporter, the Attorney General, Letitia James. I wanted to ask you, we're looking at those returns right now. You had some reactions to seeing Mamdani holding a lead in the beginning returns we're seeing. What's your initial reaction?
Well, I'm really surprised that he is winning in traditionally moderate communities, communities that can best be described as formerly Cuomo areas, Cuomo territory. So he's really doing good in central Brooklyn. He's doing good in parts of Manhattan, upper Manhattan. Cuomo is doing good on Staten Island and in parts of Queens. But the night is still young. But he is winning. And again, it really represents the excitement that I saw on the streets all throughout the city of New York, and I haven't seen this since Barack Obama ran for president of these United States, when the community and the streets were shut down all over the city with young people shouting for change. And that's what they want. Listen, just like those young people, and I'm not, obviously I'm a mature woman, I do not, and I reject fear. And there was a lot of fear politics that were injected into this race, and it's unfortunate. And what's so great about this is that New Yorkers rejected fear, and that we will not be divided. And I can assure everyone who is concerned about his platform, that I'm going to do my very best to bring everyone together so that we all can be respected, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, or your religion. We're one New York, and we obviously need affordability in the city of New York, and we need individuals, obviously, who understand, who have lived experience. And as someone who grew up in Brooklyn, who came from a humble beginning, I'm going to make sure that whoever is the mayor of this city of New York understands that.
I wanted to ask you, are you excited because you substantiated 13 cases of sexual harassment against the ex-governor? You have been critical of his campaign. Do you think that it's important for him not to get back into office?
So, first, let me just go back and say this. Andrew Cuomo specifically requested that my office engage in an investigation. It was important to me that we do an independent investigation, which is why we hired outside counsel. Unfortunately, Andrew Cuomo didn't like the results. I guess he thought that somehow I was elected to go along with his politics. That's just not me. I was elected to represent the people of the state of New York. And so those 13 women who reported allegations of sexual harassment, of hostile work environment, of having their breasts touched, is something I can't forget. Because as so many young people enter politics, as so many young girls and young women like yourself who will become journalists.
Lieutenant Governor, your reaction to that?
It would be great to have Adrienne Adams run with me all throughout the state of New York. But I'm not sure that's her future. I think her future right now is to be with her family, and I'll leave that decision to her.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney General. Really appreciate it. You're hearing it right there from the top supporter that really pushed the Speaker, Adrienne Adams, to get into the race and why she is a primary candidate tonight. We'll hear from her a little bit later. Back to you, Errol.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kelly. And we've been looking at the numbers, Courtney Gross, I mean, we're over the 50% number, meaning more than half of the vote for mayor is in at this point. What patterns are you seeing?
So we're going borough by borough. It just updated on my screen here. But, you know, we're seeing Zohran Mamdani do well in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and in Queens, winning those boroughs. And obviously these are preliminary figures. They are subject to change. So there's all these asterisks and caveats when we talk about them. But it's interesting to me that he's winning those boroughs. Brooklyn, not surprising. He's always done really well. Mamdani in the polling has done really well in Brooklyn. So it's not surprising that he's winning that borough, but Manhattan is quite interesting to me, especially when you go and you dig into some of the more, the demographic data in some of these districts. I'm thinking about Harlem. That is a community. I was in Harlem with Andrew Cuomo a few weeks ago covering an endorsement by Governor David Patterson and the former assemblyman for that district, Keith Wright. And I'm looking at the assembly district for 71. And Zohran Mamdani has double the number of votes of Andrew Cuomo in that district. That to me shows that even though the polling has shown that perhaps Zohran Mamdani was not doing well with black voters and 50% of black voters were in Andrew Cuomo's camp, that maybe there was a demographic shift and there ended up being more black voters in Mamdani's camp. Of course, preliminary numbers, 50% still need to come in. Cuomo was doing very well on Staten Island, like we heard the Attorney General say, who's digging clearly into these numbers as we do as well. And he's doing well in the Bronx, which we've seen from the polling that is turning out to be the case.
Well, you know, as they say, it gets late early around here. The percentage of scanners at this point is over 2/3. If this is a basketball game, we'd be in the third quarter, midway through the third quarter. There's going to be a shrinking amount of time and a shrinking number of votes. And as you know, we knew that, and as we've told our audience, whoever gets to 50% first is the winner. So this lead that we've been looking at since the first numbers came in shortly after 9 shows Zohran Mamdani about 7 points away from 50% and victory. Andrew Cuomo, again, we're expecting numbers to come in for him, but when you say something like West Harlem going 2-1 for Mamdani, that is striking, and that is telling, and that could tell the story.
Yeah, originally, when we first got that first tranche of voters coming, or early votes coming in, there was a 10-point lead. Mamdani had 9 or 10 points, and now that's shrunk to about 8 points. But he's at 43.8% of the vote right now. And like you said, it just takes 50% plus 1. You know, we have about 40%, 30 some odd percent of the vote still outstanding. So obviously we have to wait for that. But Mamdani is clearly in a very good position right now. And if I know anyone who is celebrating outside of Mamdani's campaign, which I'm sure Bernadette is at, but I assume Eric Adams is also celebrating tonight.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get back to the analysis of what comes next. But let's go out to Zohran Mamdani's headquarters. This is in Long Island City, and I think it's a brewery, so I think people are going to be happy no matter what. But Bernadette Hogan is there, and they've got good reason to be happy right now, right?
Hey there, Errol, and I'm with State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the Bronx, who is a Mamdani supporter. He also serves with him in the state legislature, although in the opposite chamber.
In the upper house.
In the upper house, correct. Now, you've been out with Mamdani on the campaign trail, and now we're seeing just in the early reporting that Mamdani looks like he's ahead of Andrew Cuomo. What do you think made a difference within the final days of this campaign?
The thing that made the difference in the final days of the campaign is the same thing that made the difference from the beginning of the campaign. This has been an incredibly well-run campaign. The message discipline has been, just second to none, because it has been a consistent thing. How do we connect with people's lives? How do we change people's lives? How do we make our city more affordable? That is a message that cuts across the board. And these are early numbers, but they're positive. And what I saw on the street today and the times that I've been out with Zohran, it is pandemonium. People are energized by his presence because he understands that the campaign is coming from a place of understanding what needs to change in New Yorkers' lives, and we're going to get into office and actually make it happen.
But Senator, that message of affordability, of creating more housing, is something that Governor Kathy Hochul talks about, and she is more of a moderate Democrat. Why do you think voters are turning to someone who's a member of the DSA and more on the left-leaning end, and he's only been in the state assembly for 2 terms?
I think it's just, listen, I think that the message has a lot to do with the messenger as well. Affordability, I believe that a lot of the reasons why the governor started talking about affordability is because Zohran was talking about affordability. I think if you would have asked me at this time last year what this campaign was going to be about, the mayoral campaign, everybody would have probably said it's going to be about public safety. But the reality is that the narrative changed, but it only changed because I believe that the Zohran campaign actually connected with what is really the worry of people's everyday lives. So certainly public safety is a concern, but affordability is a longer-term concern that cuts across all boroughs, all demographics, and I think that the numbers are showing us that.
And affordability, part of his fiscal policy really would hinge on the legislature approving a tax on the wealthiest of New Yorkers, something that the governor herself had said, I'm not doing that, that's a non-starter. You are a supporter of that proposal. What do you think it will take now if Mamdani ends up winning and he's the mayor? What kind of course of action will he take? What do you recommend?
So let's talk 2 things. Back when Cuomo was governor, we got him to do things that he didn't want to do. We changed taxes on the wealthy. We did housing policy. We actually got the excluded workers fund. All of these things that he didn't want to do, but we got him to do it because we put enough pressure. Now, fast forward, the 50,000 plus volunteers that were out there in this type of weather, knocking on doors, talking to people. Do you think they're going to go away? No. We're going to ask those same New Yorkers. I want you to put the pressure now on the legislature, on the governor, because these are things that we need to do to change people's lives. I sincerely believe that we're going to take the energy that made this campaign a possibility, and we're going to take it right into the governing. Because remember, Zohran was an organizer before, he's an organizer now, and I believe he will be an organizer mayor as well.
And quickly, final thoughts. You were in the legislature when Andrew Cuomo was governor.
Yes, I was.
Talk to me. Why do you think that issues like sexual harassment and his handling of the pandemic didn't appear to hit really with voters in the early days of the campaign, but we're hearing more and more of it? We saw some of the women who had accused him of sexual harassment appear with another campaign, Brad Lander. Do you think that message has resonated with voters?
This is the thing about Cuomo. Cuomo, I'll give him his credit. From a distance, he is good at pomp and circumstance, and he's good at looking like a good leader. But all you got to do is scratch beneath the surface. And what we did, what not only myself, but thousands of volunteers did around the city for months now, is we asked people to really ask themselves what Cuomo did when he was in office. And the reality is that there's so many things that Cuomo did in office that actually created the problems that he actually is saying that he's going to resolve. And he did all these things, and then when you do that, when you remind people, there's a Zohran canvasser that called it the flippery quotient. 98% of the people that we talk to, that you actually explain to them, do you remember what Cuomo did? They go like, you know what? I can't vote for that guy. I can't vote for that jerk. Eventually they get there. So that's what we're talking about. From a distance, he looks good. good. But once you look closely at him and you look closely at his record, most New Yorkers will reject him, and I believe that's what we will see tonight.
All right, well, thank you so much, Senator, for your time. That was State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the Bronx, the 33rd District, who, again, he was the State Senate Health Committee chairman during COVID. He worked intimately with Andrew Cuomo, but he also works with Zohran Mamdani, who is in the State Assembly. Errol, back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Bernadette. Let's check in now with our Dan Rivoli. He's standing by at the campaign party in Park Slope for Brad Lander. Lander, of course, cross-endorsed with Mamdani late in the campaign, so in some ways this is good news for them as well. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Errol. The mood here is big, it's ebullient, and it's not because of the open bar. When I spoke to a Lander campaign official before the polls closed, they said they had two goals in this race: win the primary and prevent Andrew Cuomo from getting the Democratic nomination. And now, with the polls as they're counting the votes, they are really excited to see Mamdani has continued his lead, even though their preferred candidate, Brad Lander, is in a distant third. And we do have one Lander supporter here, State Senator Andrew Bernardez, early endorser Brad Lander. Thank you so much for being here on New York One. Tell me, how are you feeling seeing that the person Lander cross-endorsed, Zohran Mamdani, is maintaining his lead?
Well, I'm just, first of all, incredibly proud of Brad Lander and everything he's done in this campaign, how he has coalesced the progressive movement in this city to stop a Mayor Andrew Cuomo, who I believe is not the right person to lead this city moving forward. I've known Brad for many, many years. I would be here if he was first in the polls or last in the polls, because Brad's that type of person who deserves that type of support. It's exciting to see what has been built in this city around the energy of this mayoral campaign. I have not had a chance to work as closely with Zohran directly in Albany. I know a lot of people who have, who are excited about what he has to offer. One of the reasons why I endorse Brad is because I know what he can deliver, because I've seen what he has delivered. I think that's going to be key for how this city moves forward, is being able to show results right now.
And polls were showing there were some Brad Lander voters who were going to also rank Cuomo. Then the cross-endorsement came. When you were out talking to voters, what did you hear from them? Were they recognizing that cross-endorsement, and do you think it shifted?
I definitely felt the shift on the ground. I think a lot of people that I spoke to were diehard Brad supporters, but also recognized that they had a bigger obligation and opportunity to make sure that the future of this city is not in the hands of someone who's from the past. And they really wanted to make sure that they blocked the potential of Andrew Cuomo to become the next mayor. And so I did feel that shift on the ground quite significantly. And I was all across my district today, from Bay Ridge up to Brooklyn Heights. I heard that message consistently and clearly from many types of voters.
Now, of course, obviously Brad Lander in a distant third. What do you hope for him in his political career in the future going forward?
Whatever Brad Lander wants to do, I will be right there beside him, because he's been beside me every step of my career. He believed in me before I was even elected and helped get me to where I am today. And so I'm excited. I'm disappointed he wasn't number one tonight, but I'm excited to see what he wants to do next. And whatever that is, electoral politics or otherwise, I'm eager to play a part in it.
And seeing the polls leading up to Election Day and now seeing the results, what do you think it says about the electorate and what Democrats here in the city want from their nominee?
Democrats want leaders who are going to fix their problems. There is a huge housing crisis. There is a huge affordability crisis. There is a child care crisis. People can't afford to live in this city. People want action. They don't want solutions from people who caused these problems a decade or so more. They are demanding action. They want Congress to act. They want the federal government to act. They want our state government to act. And they certainly want our city government to act. And that's what I think we saw here tonight.
And, you know, a lot of the polling had showed Mamdani's support came from white voters, high income, high educated. Do you think that is still holding, or do you think the vote is reflecting a broader support than what the polls had indicated was his core base of, you know, Brownstone, Brooklyn, Upper West Side, and places like that?
I haven't had a chance to really see an update of numbers or see where things are, so I can't really speak to that. I'll just say that anyone who wants to be a successful mayor of New York has to build a coalition that covers the full spectrum of New York City. That's the recipe to success. That's what we need to see of any nominee who has a shot of winning in November and then governing for the next 4 years, particularly in this age of Trump. So that's what I think we need to see moving forward.
All right. Thank you, State Senator Andrew Bernardez. We have Jumaane Williams, the public advocate, taking the stage behind me. Errol, I'm going to send it back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Dan. Adrienne Adams, who's a candidate running out of Queens, is addressing her supporters. Let's listen in.
Into this race about 3 months ago at Rochdale Village. Yeah! propelled immediately to where folks who have been running in this race for a year and a half already were, and we leapfrogged over those candidates. Oh no, it ain't over. We're not going there. And then, as things began to progress, and people started talking about our money and, oh, she's not going to get matching funds. Well, y'all that were watching, the matching funds came out 5 days after we got in the race. So logically, we knew that we were not going to get the first iteration of matching funds anyway. But I tell you what we did do. What we did do was we raised more money in 5 days, once again, as any candidate could have ever have hoped for or wished for in this race. And before I go any further, I want y'all to give it up for the baddest AG that ever walked this. Her name is Letitia James. And she taught me everything I know about fighting the good fight. I also want to thank my amazing campaign team. They jumped in and they said, oh no, we're not going to be able to lift off the ground. Oh yeah, we lifted off the ground. We did much more than lift off the ground. We made people stand up and take note for who this campaign was and why we were here, and made people realize, oh yeah, there really is somebody in this race that really does care about me. Somebody that really does want to make better for you and me. And so as we continue on, I also want to thank, oh my goodness, my colleagues out here today too. This is Councilmember Chris Banks. And I couldn't be here, of course. I talk about them in any speech that I talk about. My family. You all know one of my taglines? I am a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and a sister. Here they are, some of them. The wife, the mother, the grandmother. All here to support little old me. Who thought and still believes that she could be the first woman mayor of the city.
Okay, that's Adrienne Adams. We're going to go now to Chumani Williams, who's addressing his supporters. Let's listen to that.
The step one, questions for those houses that the people with more privilege have to step up and take focus. So while I am thankful for all of the people in the voted for me, I really appreciate that. I thank you so much for re-electing me. But I think even Brad will agree that what we're most proud of is Andrew Cuomo is down right now. The Democratic.
Okay, bit of a reminder there that Chumani Williams, who has declared victory, and we have called it for him, he will, in fact, get another term. We should remind folks that he ran against Andrew Cuomo not that long ago, and we can see some of what he was getting at there, pointing out that defeating Andrew Cuomo was on a lot of people's agenda. Our political director, Bob Hart, is here with us. What do you make of all these numbers?
I mean, you and I talked shortly before 9 o'clock about how Mamdani would have a lead, as I predicted, and that happened, but that it would narrow and it would get tighter and tighter. Errol, it's barely narrowed. There's a 7.8 point lead that Mamdani has over Cuomo with about 85% of the expected vote in. He's basically held the lead. It's tightened a tiny bit. This is basically the worst case scenario for the Andrew Cuomo campaign. And it's going to be extremely difficult if these numbers roughly hold. That means no one got 50%, so we have to go to the ranked choice computer in a week. It's going to be extremely, extremely hard for Andrew Cuomo to leapfrog Mamdani as those numbers go down. Brad Lander, who's in third, has basically cross-endorsed Mamdani. That means that Mamdani will probably get more of those Lander votes. That's the biggest source of remaining votes. So this has been a spectacularly successful night for Mamdani, and barring a statistical fluke, he could very well be the Democratic nominee for mayor. This is an amazing story that we're witnessing in live TV.
Indeed, and this is going to be international news if what you just described is the way this night ends. Let's go over to Ayanna Harry. She's at the Andrew Cuomo campaign headquarters at the Carpenters Union in the West Village. Ayanna, what is the mood like there?
Harold, the mood here is still pretty optimistic. Folks are, of course, glued to the televisions where New York 1 is on, and they are waiting for these results to come in. But people here also understand that this is a ranked choice voting election, so we will not know the winner tonight. So much of this race has been framed around as a decision for New York City voters between a seasoned, experienced Democrat in Andrew Cuomo or someone who may be younger, has fresher ideas in Zohran Mamdani. And Mamdani has certainly picked up a lot of support from younger voters. And so I did want to bring in Assemblymember Jordan Wright. You are the youngest elected official in Manhattan. You have endorsed and vocally supported Andrew Cuomo. As a young New Yorker, what is it about Cuomo, his message, his campaign that spoke to you as a Harlem resident and also as a state assembly member?
Thank you, Ayanna. It's very important to me that, as Governor Andrew Cuomo did a lot for black New Yorkers, people in my district. There was a lot done with LaGuardia Airport. There was a lot done with the Moynihan train station. And the list really goes on. And it's really important to me that, we continue to see that leadership. And, my family has worked closely with the Cuomo family for a very long time. So it really means a lot to me to be able to be here supporting Andrew Cuomo's run for mayor.
As you walk the streets of Harlem, you talk to your constituents. What are the pressing issues that are really driving their votes in this race?
A lot of affordable housing issues. People want somewhere to live. A lot of cost of living issues. People want, be able to make a living wage. These are two things that Andrew Cuomo has definitely committed to doing, building many units of affordable housing, as well as a $20 minimum wage.
Yeah, he spoke about, black voters and the support traditionally for Andrew Cuomo, but we know black voters as a demographic is dramatically shifting and changing. What are you seeing in terms of changing needs and wants for black voters, and how is Andrew Cuomo also speaking to that?
I think Andrew Cuomo is kind of speaking, talking about what he's done. And I think, black voters, their memories are long, and they understand exactly what the deal is, and they know what Andrew Cuomo is going to bring to the table once he's elected mayor.
Okay. Jordan Wright, we appreciate you sharing your time. Errol, right now, we're inside the Carpenters Union Hall, waiting for Andrew Cuomo to come in and address the supporters that have been gathering here tonight. And again, people eagerly watching New York 1, listening to you, Errol, analyzing these results as they come in, and just staying tuned.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. We're going to send it over to our Courtney Gross. She's in Studio N, analyzing tonight's primary election with a panel of experts. Courtney.
Good evening, Errol. As we wait for more information about tonight's results, let's bring in our panel of experts. Democratic consultant Teresa Gonzalez is back with us, along with Stu Lozer, a longtime Democratic consultant who also served as press secretary under Mayor Michael Bloomberg. So, Stu, I'm going to start with you. Mayor Michael Bloomberg endorsed in this race. He gave $8.3 million to a super PAC called Fix the City that spent more than $20 million to push the candidacy of Andrew Cuomo. I know you're not Mike Bloomberg, but you're very close with him. So how do you think that the former mayor is feeling tonight?
Look, I haven't talked to him tonight. When Mike endorsed former Governor Cuomo, put out a really heartfelt, thoughtful, and frankly great statement. I did not write it, in which he emphasized that no candidate is perfect. And maybe if Andrew Cuomo and his team had gone and agreed that no candidate is perfect more often, more voters would have given him support right now. He's still alive, but as it looks right now, his argument of few and no mistakes were made, the governor's argument that I made no mistakes, did not seem to carry the day.
Teresa, do you think that it's a fact that the governor wasn't contrite enough, didn't apologize enough, didn't perhaps talk about why he was driven from office because of the sexual harassment allegations, that we're seeing these results tonight where Zohran Mamdani is clearly in a very good position going into the potential ranked choice voting scenario or computation that will occur on July 1st at noon?
I will say that I think part of what makes Mamdani's campaign so electric is that he has made it a point to connect with people, right? To be out there, to be visible, to talk about things like maybe I'm not as experienced, right? But let me tell you what I do care about and what you care about. And I think I would say that one of the challenges that the Cuomo campaign had was getting him out there more. So I think it was less about talking about what his faults are, more about kind of being okay with being with people, in front of people, and out there and open about it. But and I think that's really what the part of the magic of Mamdani's campaign has been.
We have some mailers from Fix the City. You know, I mentioned before the super PAC spent an unprecedented amount of money on this race for mayor, more than $20 million. They raised $25 million. The mailers that we have, we can pull up on the screen here, you know, they were very targeted. They talked to Jewish voters in particular, sent out to certain areas in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and said they called Mamdani dangerous. They had rhetoric that many people said was dark. There was questions about whether or not they were lengthening his beard. What is your reaction to that, Stu? I mean, do you think that this message kind of backfired?
Well, look, I think you're exactly right when you say it was a dark message. The primary rationale that Andrew Cuomo was offering is that New York is a city in chaos, and that New York is a city that needs to be fixed. And the campaign, or the amazing thing about that is this is a primary in June. June follows the 6 weeks of the year in New York City that are the best 6 weeks. The ones in which you say, it is fantastic, and it was worth freezing my way to the train, to the bus, or even if you have a car waiting for you on a sidewalk, freezing my way out there because I get to live in the greatest city in the world in the greatest 8 weeks of the year. It's a phenomenally optimistic time.
You're saying spring alone is the reason why Mamdani won.
I'm saying that it's the second campaign in a row in which a candidate who has spent a lot of time in Westchester County and does not understand what winter is, perhaps doesn't understand what it's like to be a New Yorker living in the winter in a cooped up space, no matter how rich you are. Second time, first Andrew Yang and now Andrew Cuomo saying it is a campaign, everything is chaos, which is an amazing amount of cognitive dissonance to have to force down people's throats, as opposed to exactly what Teresa said. Assemblyman Mamdani started off with the simplest and most traditional sales technique in the world. I'm going to tell you something that you agree with already, so you agree with me. And the first thing you do is you agree with it. That builds trust. And then we can have a conversation. City is not affordable for enough people, says the assemblyman. We all agree with it. It's like selling anything. The first thing you do is get them to agree with you on anything, as opposed to Cuomo campaign strategy, which is, first thing I'm going to do is try and convince you of something that you may not even think is true by the time Election Day comes around.
Do you think that he was running, Teresa, Cuomo, what I'm talking about, was running it almost on a 2021 message? His message was very similar to Eric Adams, talking about hiring 5,000 more police officers, talking about public safety, and Mamdani obviously picked up on that affordability message. Free buses for everyone, free childcare for everyone. You can argue about whether or not it's even possible in the state legislature, but Cuomo may have just been going into this with the wrong message.
You know, I said this during the break. You know, I don't know that Zoran's campaign would be here without kind of this overarching darkness of the national tenor, right? There's this feeling of like, you know, and we saw this during the election where it was like bread and butter issues are what people care about. And so, and there was all of this excitement that led to kind of a moment of despair when we lost, right? And I think, you know, Zoran's been able to kind of pick up on that, whereas I don't know that Cuomo's tapped into kind of that need to move away from this moment of despair and this
Can I just add one thing to this?
Yeah.
Donald Trump won because he ran, both times he won, he's only won twice, but both times he won because he ran on something that people understand. This time, it was no taxes on tips, which is is it a good idea? We'll debate it. What does it say? It says I am the Republican Party and I don't care about, I'm not just here for rich people, I'm here for people who make tips, people who don't have salaries. And B, it's something you understand. Whereas the Democratic campaign, I was a strong advocate, a strong surrogate for Kamala Harris in the Jewish community. When I was asked, you know, what is an opportunity society or what is an opportunity economy? I don't know what that is. And you talked about the mail from the Cuomo campaign. Bless them. They put I got a handbill when I walked into the campaign to vote this week. It had 21 points on it in English. It was bilingual, so it had 42 points. It's a lot of information to absorb between walking in off the curb and going in to vote.
And one thing we can say about the Mamdani campaign, it was concise. The message was very clear. Free buses, childcare, and obviously free rent. It's unclear if he's going to be able to actually get that agenda.
We don't know.
Yes, of course. Okay, I think we're going to go back to Errol Lewis in the other studio for now.
All right, thanks very much, Courtney. If you're just joining us, it is now 10 p.m. The polls have been closed for an hour, and in the race for mayor, Zohran Mamdani is currently leading with a more than 7-point lead over Andrew Cuomo. Meanwhile, Mark Levine holds a strong lead in the race for city controller, and we've already called the races for public advocate, with Jumaane Williams securing re-election, as well as the race for borough president of the Bronx. Vanessa Gibson has won another nomination, and Antonio Reynoso of Brooklyn also winning renomination. Let's bring in our political director, Bob Hart, and Bobby Kuza over at the big board. And let's start with the numbers, Bobby. Show us what's going on in that race for mayor.
Right. So, we've been talking about how Zohran Mamdani was supposedly going to be at his high water mark at the beginning of the night, and then the lead was going to narrow and narrow, and potentially former Governor Andrew Cuomo could overtake him. That has not happened, right? We started with Zohran Mamdani at the beginning of the night with something like a 9-point lead. That has hardly shrunk at all. He's up 7.4 percentage points right now, and we're almost out of votes. We're up at 87% of the total expected vote count. So this is going to ranked choice voting at this point. It looks like nobody's going to hit 50% in this race, but it seems highly unlikely that the ranked choice votes will go to Andrew Cuomo, especially when you're talking about somebody like Brad Lander. Brad Lander's in third place with 11.4%. And we have a pretty good idea that most of those Brad Lander votes will end up going to Zohran Mamdani in the ranked choice tabulation, given the fact that they cross-endorsed each other. Polls that have been taken the last couple of months have also shown that most Lander votes go to Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani could not be in a better place right now with 87% of the vote. I also wanted to show you a little bit of the borough-by-borough breakdown. We knew Zohran Mamdani was going to do well in Brooklyn, and you look at the numbers here. He's up 19 points in Brooklyn. He's also up in Queens, which we didn't necessarily expect, up by 8 points in Queens. He's also ahead in Manhattan by about 6 points, make that maybe 5 points. So he's ahead in all three of those boroughs. Those boroughs together make up about 79% of the Democratic primary electorate. They make up 79% of Democratic primary voters. So even though Andrew Cuomo is winning in the Bronx and he's winning on Staten Island, that's just not going to be nearly enough. Those two boroughs together only make up about 21% of the Democratic primary electorate. So, Zohran Mamdani is winning in places that we didn't necessarily expect him to win, like you were talking about earlier, Errol. So that's going to be one of the stories of the night, is the way that he has outperformed expectations. And also, you look at the trajectory of Zohran Mamdani over these past few weeks and past few months. You go back to February, nobody even knew who this guy was. There was an Emerson poll in February where he had 1% of the vote. He was 32 points behind Andrew Cuomo, and as recently as May, he was 12 points behind Andrew Cuomo, but he kept narrowing the gap, and now he has overtaken Andrew Cuomo, and it looks like he might end the night there.
Okay, so Bob Hart, political director, what do you make of these results so far?
It reminds me a lot of AOC when she beat Joe Crowley in that Democratic primary for Congress. Think about it. 5 years ago, Andrew Cuomo is governor of New York State, one of the most powerful politicians in the entire country. 5 years ago, Mamdani is running this in this crowded primary for state assembly, and yet here we are. The other thing, we know Bobby's crunching those numbers. Mamdani's at about 44%. He needs 50% to win in the ranked choice simulations. Going back 4 years ago, Eric Adams, who eventually won, he was only at 31%. So it took him a long time to win. What I'm saying is that Mamdani is almost already at the finish line, Errol. And for Andrew Cuomo to catch him would be, like I said earlier, a statistical anomaly. I really don't see how Cuomo can catch him at this point.
Right. If you convert it into raw numbers, there's something like 60 or 70,000 votes that Andrew Cuomo would have to find somewhere between now and next Tuesday.
Right. And so what it would mean is that all of disproportionate, a real disproportionate amount of the supporters of the other candidates would be going for Cuomo. We've seen the cross endorsements. Brad Lander, who is at roughly about 10%, he has endorsed Mamdani. That means disproportionately his votes are going to go to someone who already has the lead. So it's, to me, obviously we have to count everything, but I've seen enough elections, I've followed enough, I've done enough math that I think that it's going to be very, very weird math for Andrew Cuomo to somehow triumph when they turn on the computers next Tuesday. Yeah, we're going to be doing more analysis on a special podcast episode tonight, but even in advance of that, this is going to be international news tomorrow. It is. And there's already, I think, postmortems of the Cuomo campaign that are going to be going on. What did he do? What did he not do? I think a lot of what he did not do were the candidate forums that we saw all of the other candidates go to, going around and doing the pressing the flesh, going into diners. When Hillary Clinton, who was First Lady of the United States, decided to run for the U.S. Senate, she did a listening tour and went to stores and diners and farms and acted humble. We did not really see, for the most part, that humility from the Andrew Cuomo and his campaign. Instead, they acted like they've done this before. They knew everyone. And I think the idea that he was a quasi-incumbent didn't fly with a lot of voters, especially because he was damaged goods and left Albany. Basically was run out of town because of the sexual harassment accusations against him. Yeah, well, it was interesting. He was in some ways trying to run an inside and outside campaign, right? He's saying, oh, New York is really screwed up. It's in crisis. We need to make some changes. On the other hand, you know, and some of the other candidates did point this out. They're like, well, you were in charge for over a decade of the whole state. You bear some responsibility for whatever it is that's not going right in New York right now. Andrew Cuomo is obviously a very strong politician, but his great weakness is there's no humility. There was never a statement of contrition about mistakes he made, either with handling COVID, saying that nothing was perfect, handling the sexual harassment scandals that drove him from the job, and reintroducing himself to voters. He had name recognition, but that clearly hasn't been enough tonight. Okay, let's go back out to Brooklyn, where Brad Lander is about to address his supporters. We're in Park Slope there. And if somebody could get those signs down. Oh, there we go.
I'm under strict no dancing orders. Meg Barnett, everyone. I could have gotten not one more vote than the people standing on this stage today, and I would still be the luckiest guy in the city of New York. Thank you all for being here tonight. The votes are still being counted, and the ranked choice tabulations will take a few days. But this much is clear. Together, we are sending Andrew Cuomo back to the suburbs. With our help, Zohran Mamdani will be the Democratic nominee for the mayor of the city of New York. And we are on a path to win a city that all New Yorkers can afford and where everyone belongs. I really can't put into words what the support of everyone in this room tonight means. You all did so much to make this campaign possible. There are leaders here from organizations and people who supported me long before it was cool. I want to especially shout out Make the Road Action, Cuff Action, Choose for Racial and Economic Justice. You heard just a few minutes ago from Public Advocate Chumani Williams. We have some other amazing people in the room, like State Assembly Member Emily Gallagher. Thank you. And I'll mention a few more later as I see them and as they come in. But all of you, will everyone in this room who hosted a house party raise your hand? How about everyone who made a contribution to this campaign? How about everyone who stood outside today on the hottest day in 15 years? I really can't believe you all did that. It is incredible. I always say that really the thing I am most proud of in public service is building the best teams, and we have the best one of all. Our volunteers, and especially, boy, our campaign staff, they put on a masterclass in what dedication looks like when you've got the right people in place. So let's hear it for the best damn staff of any campaign in this race. Raise your hands, Landers, Team Landers staff, please. Also, the only unionized staff in the campaign. You guys obviously wrote the best policies and plans, that's hands down. You obviously did the best Andrew Cuomo oppo. Hit after hit after hit. You were the best debate preparers, obviously. And you even finally succeeded in making me look good on TikTok. Really, your devotion, your passion, your belief in me as the right leader for this city mean more than I could possibly communicate. And we had some incredible consultants on this race, so thank you, Berlin Rosen and Global Strategy and Blake Zeff and everybody else who worked on this team. I also need to thank some of the most important people in my life and on this campaign. I mean, of course, the New York Times editorial board. Just kidding, of course. I love Wordle and Connections, but I really urge the Times to cancel their new feature, editorial riddles. No one likes those. No, obviously, I mean the set of people who are standing here behind me, my incredible parents, Carol and David. I'm sorry that Andrew Cuomo attacked St. Louis in the debate. We showed him. But really, I often say that my parents are proud of me like it's the 5th grade spelling bee, which I did not win. And I couldn't be prouder to be your son. Big shout out and thank you to Meg's sister Beth, who is here. And to my sister Rachel. Unbelievable.
That was Brad Lander speaking in Park Slope. Let's go over to where Zelnor Myrie is in Brooklyn, speaking to his supporters.
A man with very quiet confidence who helped us build what we have today, who was a constant source of advice. Mark Guma, he's here. Give it up for him. My organizing director who had everybody in t-shirts doing the hard work, doing the field. Let's give it up for Rebecca. Make some noise. Had an amazing digital team, Zinzer and Harmony, doing amazing work every single day. Give it up for them. And to my government team, who continued the service to this community, that helped us still deliver while running for mayor, who helped us save SUNY Downstate and got $1 billion invested in, who helped us to establish an Office of Gun Violence Prevention and get $3 million in it, who helped us to pass much more legislation to uplift this community. I want to give a big round of applause to Godfrey, to Portia, to Matt, to Frida, to Atira. Please give it up. Please give it up for them. And I, of course, have to thank my family. my mom, who everybody knows and everybody loves, my dad, who we brought out of retirement to come do every single thing that this campaign needed. Please give it up for my parents. There's a very pretty woman in the audience. I'd argue the baddest in the audience, who sacrificed a lot of time with me, who gave up a lot for us to go on this mission. My beautiful wife, Diana Richardson Myers. And to our son, who has joined us tonight, Isaac. Let's give him a round of applause.
Zilnor Myrie conceding, another one of the mayoral candidates. He's out in Brooklyn. Let's go out to Queens, to the Zohran Mamdani campaign headquarters, where our Bernadette Hogan joins us now. Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. So right now, I've got the Mamdani supporters standing behind me. We also have New York One on, of course, with the live coverage. And with me is the co-director of the Working Families Party, who argued to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 on their slate of preferred candidates. Ana Maria Archila joins me now. Ana Maria, let's start out with what you thought about Mamdani a year ago when he was, again, a two-term assemblyman. Nobody really knew who he was. He talks about this time when he was at 1%, right? Name recognition. Why did you think that he should top the Working Family Party's slate?
Well, we studied the results of the 2021 election, and we understood that in order to win against the candidate of the billionaires, we needed to construct a coalition that could engage young people, that could engage Muslim voters, that could engage working class voters from across the city. And we knew that Zohran was uniquely equipped to engage a generation of voters that feel really disillusioned with the Democratic Party, but who really very much need New York to be a place where they can stay, afford, and to stay here and thrive. And we also thought other candidates would play a role in that effort. And so we set out to build a coalition that was ideologically diverse, racially diverse, that could really represent the majority of New York City. And that's what we did. And then Zohran, as part of our slate, really played as an amazing team member, but also built the campaign that had the best capacity to reach voters all across the city, and that's why we're seeing tonight's results.
Now, when we look at past campaigns run by progressives like Mamdani, now he's a DSA member, Democratic Socialist. You also ran a statewide race for lieutenant governor. Talk to me about your race, but then also Cynthia Nixon, Zephyr Teachout, those that were able to crack. I mean, Zephyr Teachout was probably the most successful running for governor against Andrew Cuomo. She hit about 40% statewide. But why has it been, I guess, a stumbling block for citywide candidates to move past a certain percentage point? And why are we seeing Zohran Mamdani with over 90% of election results in now, within striking distance of changing those past data points?
Yeah. Well, first of all, these two, both the Cynthia Nixon campaign and Zephyr Teachout were statewide campaigns. My campaign was statewide. They shared some elements. We spoke about people's economic realities, as did Zohran. Zohran took from everything and got the best. He said we have to invite people into the democracy by talking to them at the doors. He said we have to have a clear message that addresses their concerns around the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of groceries. He did that. And then I think he also understood that in a moment when the electorate was so depressed and demoralized after November, it was really important to not give up on people, to go everywhere, to talk to everyone, and to make sure that people who are always pushed to the margins felt invited to the center of our democracy and the vision for the city.
So now going forward, depending on the election results tonight, which we might not know at the end of the night, we might have a couple more days until all the ballots are counted. What do you see going forward when, if it's Mamdani, what challenges do you foresee when he's going against an Eric Adams, a Republican, and maybe Andrew Cuomo if he ends up deciding to take that independent line?
Yes. Well, we know that the billionaire class didn't pour $25 million and is ready to give up, so we are going to get ready to win in the general election, whether have made New York City a place where working families really struggle. So we will do the work that needs to be done to engage the communities that still are getting to know Zoran Mamdani, and we will make sure that in the general election we are winning with an incredible mandate to deliver for working families, not the billionaires.
In the general election, you'll have to attract independent voters, right, who are not allowed to vote in this closed Democratic primary, maybe talk to some Republicans. I mean, a general election is different, obviously, for those reasons. But why do you think, these messages of affordability, which are vastly different from the message of affordability from Governor Kathy Hochul, or some more moderates in the state legislature, why do you think that has had this success? And again, I'm seeing young people out in McCarran Park. I'm seeing Mamdani talk to on the subway up in Inwood. Why do you think he was able to maybe bridge that gap?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. So on the general electorate, we have already done some modeling of what it would look like to run in the general election. And we know that New York City's independent voters are actually very ideologically diverse. We have people on the left who really are tired of the two-party system, people who are registered in the Working Families Party, and then we also have people who are more centrist. So there is a lot of room to grow for Zoran with independent voters, obviously more room to grow with Democratic voters. And we know that regardless of people's party affiliation, everybody's worried about the cost of
and she's still there at the headquarters. Going into tomorrow, questions about his assembly seat, all kinds of questions are now on the table.
Yeah, I mean, they need to start thinking about November. I mean, they can take a victory lap, and as they should. This is a clearly, I don't know if we can say unprecedented, but certainly showing how much grassroots support and what kind of movement and organization they had throughout the entire city, and the volunteers and the door knocking. I mean, they proved themselves to be quite the political organization. But this is not it. And, we don't want to poo-poo his victory and allow him to take the victory lap. There's so many items, part of his agenda or part of him as a person that we haven't even talked about. And we've generally, the first Muslim major candidate to win a Democratic Party nomination. I mean, that is huge for the hundreds of thousands of Muslims here in New York City. The South Asian population, such a huge victory from them. But this is not a guarantee. Eric Adams, I was just on X looking at his X feed or Twitter feed or whatever you want to call it. He's out there tweeting, talking about he is the one with the record. He's the one that's doing the jobs. He's the one that's gotten jobs up and crime down. And he's expected to have a kickoff rally sometime this week where we get to know which ballot line he runs on. I mean, this is going to be a very real race, and good for New Yorkers because you get a real contrast in these candidates. Curtis Sliwa, the Republican nominee, is also out there tweeting about how you shouldn't have a radical in City Hall. I mean, these narratives are going to be out there.
So what you're saying is, with less money than Andrew Cuomo had, they're going to repeat the same messaging and expect it to work.
I don't know. We have to wait and see. I mean, we were on before with our political panel, and Stu Lozer, who is the press secretary for Mike Bloomberg for a number of years and obviously tied in with the business community, was telling me just, an hour ago that within the break that we had in our coverage, he was fielding 3 phone calls from people in the business community. I can't say that they were panicked. I don't know the tenor of those phone calls. I wasn't on them, but there was so much money poured into Andrew Cuomo. We don't know specifically whether Andrew Cuomo will continue on through November. I mean, the statement that his campaign released tonight is saying that he has already qualified for the November ballot. So we'll see if he ends up mounting some sort of campaign. But there's tons of money out there that is going to be directed at someone. And who's it going to be directed at?
Yeah, well, I mean, one would hope, Bobby, because of that, maybe they would have their money support something, be in favor of something, as opposed to attacking all the time. Because as we just learned tonight, it doesn't really work.
Right. I mean, you look at the spending, and I know, Courtney, you've been looking at this closely, just the spending that was going into Fix the City, this outside group, super PAC, whatever you want to call it, that was pouring money into these ads just over the past couple of weeks, basically assaulting Zoran Mamdani. And in the end, I don't know what that money bought. I mean, did that make any marginal difference in the final vote count? It certainly didn't seem to help Andrew Cuomo much, considering the fact that he underperformed pretty much everyone's expectations in this race. So, I mean, I don't know whether that has any impact on the general election and the way that people choose to spend their money. I mean, you're talking about how they had more money to spend than Eric Adams is. I mean, Eric Adams is he's in debt, right? He has a lot of money that he has to pay back before he can even start to amass the kind of campaign war chest that he's going to need to run an effective race in November. And then, you know, what is Zohran Mamdani? He's probably going to have an easier time raising money for the general election than he did raising money for the primary. And when we know he was able to raise money at a historic pace in the primary. So, I mean, all indicators are pointing in the right direction for Zohran Mamdani. It seems that everything that was thrown against him just didn't manage to stick. None of those attack lines seemed to work. Really, in the end, I mean, in hindsight, it seems like he ran a perfectly effective campaign. I mean, I can't look back and see that there were any missteps in the Zohran Mamdani campaign that's really set him back at all.
You know, while you're there, as we're waiting for Zohran Mamdani to give a speech, and we'll bring that to you live when it comes up, let's look at some numbers. What can you show us of the city council races that we've been following throughout the night?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier, we didn't really see a lot of upsets tonight. We didn't see a lot of incumbent council members who were unseated or at least knocked off in the primary, which we do see occasionally. I mean, it's not typical to see a lot of incumbent council members or incumbent lawmakers on any level of government, quite frankly, lose their jobs. I mean, it does happen occasionally, but we thought that there might be some tough races tonight. And if we want to kind of begin to draw a narrative from this, we saw that there were a lot of more left-leaning progressive council makers affiliated with the DSA, with the Democratic Socialists of America, who might have been in trouble because they were facing challenges from the right, from more moderate candidates. I mean, we saw this in City Council District 1, which I don't think we've really taken a look at tonight, but this is Christopher Marte, who had a few challengers in his race. We thought this could potentially be close. He ended up winning by, 25 points in this race. This will still go to ranked choice, but clearly he's going to emerge as the winner in that race. And, you know, I'm thinking of a couple other races. Earlier we mentioned Shahana Hanif in Brooklyn in District 39. This is Brownstone, Brooklyn, Carroll Gardens, Park Slope, Windsor Terrace. She was facing a challenge from a woman named Maya Kornberg, and it seemed like it was going to be an issue in this race that Shahana Hanif had these very vocal pro-Palestinian opinions, and, you know, she had really spent a lot of time on activist causes that people thought were taking away from constituent services, making her ineffective as a city lawmaker. And then she ends up winning this race by 43 points. So it turned out she wasn't really in trouble at all. And then I think it was a really similar story that played out in District 38 in Brooklyn. This is Red Hook and Sunset Park. This is Alexa Aviles. She had a challenge from a much more moderate Democrat, Ling Yi, and it was thought that she might be in trouble. And here again, I mean, look at the split here. This is, 44 points. So none of these candidates, left-leaning candidates that we thought might be in trouble, ended up in trouble at all. In many cases, they ended up winning by landslides. And all of those men we talked about earlier trying to make political comebacks, Anthony Weiner certainly failed in his attempt. We didn't talk about Reuben Wills, former city council member who was actually running for his old seat in Adrian Adams' district, Council Speaker Adrian Adams' district. He finished a distant fourth, I believe. I don't think we've actually looked at this race either. Reuben Wills down here, finishing fourth with 14% in this race. Fernando Cabrera, also trying to make a political comeback in the Bronx. He fell well short in his race as well. So, you know, I don't think we saw moderate Democrats making any gains, which was kind of a sense that people maybe had given what we saw back in November when we saw voters across the city make this sort of rightward shift in the presidential election. That has not materialized tonight.
Could you take a look at District 8 in Manhattan? That was the East Harlem seat where, because of term limits, there was going to be a vacancy. And I remember there was a pretty crowded race. It included Raymond Santana, one of the exonerated five, and somebody who was trying to follow in the footsteps of one of his fellow exoneree. How did that race turn out?
Raymond Santana. This race got a lot of attention because of Raymond Santana. He was trying to join Yusuf Salaam, a fellow member of the exonerated Central Park Five. Yusuf Salaam was elected to the council 2 years ago in an adjacent district, actually. But Raymond Santana never really caught a lot of traction in this race. He jumped in kind of late to this race. Didn't manage to raise a lot of money. He'd also really hadn't moved back to New York City until recently. So Raymond Santana ended up pretty far down the board, fourth place. Elsie Encarnacion ended up in first place in this race. She was actually chief of staff to Diana Ayala, who is the outgoing council member. She was term limited out of office. This could be another one that could maybe get shaken up a little bit in the ranked choice process. But right now, Encarnacion looks like she has a pretty comfortable lead here. She had a lot of institutional support from electeds, from unions, from advocacy groups. But Raymond Santana falling well short in this one. A lot of candidates in this one. This was a pretty hard-fought, crowded race, which we saw in a lot of these open seats across the board.
Okay. And so, Courtney, when we see the new government assemble in January, all eyes will be on what happens on the west side of City Hall. But the City Council will also be a place where there's going to be change afoot, right? They're going to need a new City Council speaker, for one thing.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what happens with the women majority. I mean, that was one of the things that Adrienne Adams talks a lot about on the campaign trail, is that she became the first female black speaker of the city council. In addition, she is leading a women majority city council for the first time in its history. So I know, it's late. It's about midnight. We're still going to have to crunch the numbers, obviously, through this Democratic primary and obviously through the ranked choice, and we'll see where the new council goes. I mean, if Zohran Mamdani at the top of the ticket is an indicator of anything, and one might consider or think that this is a backlash, obviously, to the presidential election last year. We thought that maybe people would tick more moderate and people would go with an Andrew Cuomo, who is talking about crime and trying to bring New York City back to the center. But if voters are turning out for Zohran Mamdani and electing Zohran Mamdani, then what will the rest of the ticket, what will the down ballot races look like? What will the right side, not the left side of City Hall, end up looking like? And my bet is that it's going to be probably pretty progressive, in which it already has been incredibly progressive as it stands already. I mean, they've had many clashes, this city council, with the other side of City Hall in the form of Mayor Eric Adams, whether it's over policing legislation, legislation to have to ban solitary confinement in New York City jails, and whether you should increase the number of housing vouchers for homeless families. And those have all been clashes that we've seen with this city council and this particular mayor.
Right. And, it also bears mentioning that there are going to be a lot of pressing issues that land on the desk of both the next mayor and the next council. I'm thinking of the takeover of Rikers Island.
Absolutely.
The receivership that has never happened before. Nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be something, front and center on day one.
Yeah, so we are waiting, obviously, to get a recommendation from the judge. There will be the parties. This judge came out with this monumental decision, having the decision to appoint a receiver to oversee New York City jails. It's only happened about a dozen other times in this country, and we're really in, you can't say entirely uncharted territory, because it's happened in other areas like California, for instance, but certainly in New York City, it's uncharted, and we don't know what that's going to look like. There will continue to be a commissioner at the city's Department of Correction, but come August, there's going to be recommendations in federal court about who this federal receiver should be, who will be appointed by the judge, and who will be in charge and have control of Rikers Island. Not only will that person be in charge of Rikers Island, but there's obviously a plan on the table. Rikers Island is supposed to close in August of 2027, and even in our debate, that was hosted on a couple of weeks ago, all of the candidates acknowledged on that stage that deadline is not going to be met. So the next mayor will not only have to deal with the receiver and that tricky balancing act of allowing a receiver to basically run Rikers Island, but also put in place how you're going to close it, because these jails, the borough-based jails that have been billions of dollars in city contracts to build, they're not going to be done until 2030, 2031, potentially 2032.
And Bobby, it strikes me that in some ways Donald Trump was not absent from this race, right? We saw it in the debates that we held. We saw it in a lot of the council races. Everyone was saying we have to Trump-proof New York City. We have to fight back. We have to figure this out. that really probably skewed who was energized, who wanted to come out, and who ultimately voted and gave us the outcomes that we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways you could see the results as a reaction to the Trump effect. But, you know, I'm thinking specifically about the Mamdani race, and he did not make Donald Trump front and center, right? I mean, he stuck to economic issues, to cost of living issues. He didn't make this about White House policy. Now, it varied by race and varied by office. I mean, I'm also thinking about the city comptroller's race, and that is a position where you're dealing with the city's finances, you're dealing with potentially huge cuts in federal money flowing to New York City. And so that's going to be a primary concern as part of your job description. So we heard Justin Brannan and Mark Levine both making that front and center in their campaigns, how they were going to fight back against the Trump administration as they attacked New York City. And then, of course, in the mayor's race, you know, you saw this conversation about who was going to be best equipped to stand up to Donald Trump. I mean, that was, you know, one of the arguments we heard from Andrew Cuomo. He was the one who was going to stand up to Trump. You remember that in the debate, of course, on New York One a couple of weeks ago, Andrew Cuomo said, or maybe it was in the earlier debate when he first sort of was confronted by the other candidates on the same stage, and he said of Zohran Mamdani, Donald Trump is going to cut through him like a hot knife through butter. He was basically saying that, you know, he wasn't built to stand up to Trump. And so that was part of the dialogue during the mayoral race, but it wasn't something that we heard Mamdani really zero in on. And so I wonder if maybe that was part of the appeal of his message, that it was so narrowly focused on affordability and cost of living and people's economic concerns, that, you know, that idea of being able to stand up to Trump, even though polls have shown that that's something that they want out of their mayor, it wasn't something that he really made the focus of his campaign. And of course, in the general election, that's going to be part of the conversation again because of this sort of unique place that Eric Adams occupies right now, where the perception, at least, is that, you know, he is basically in thrall to the Trump administration because they managed to engineer the federal corruption case against him being dropped. And so there's a feeling that, if anything, Eric Adams is sort of collaborating with the Trump administration. And so we could see that become part of the conversation as well.
Okay. On the right side of your screen, folks, is the campaign manager for the Zohran Mamdani campaign. When the candidate comes up, we will bring that to you live. I see they have a teleprompter there, suggesting that they're going to be speaking to more than just the handful of people there on the roof. This will be a speech beamed out, I think, to a national audience, it's safe to say. We're hearing from reaction from a lot of different sources, Courtney.
Yep. So we're just getting a tweet in or an X in, whatever we call it nowadays, from Governor Kathy Hochul, who we should note did not weigh in on the race. There was some speculation behind the scenes that she had encouraged Adrienne Adams to run, but there was never any clear confirmation. She never went out and backed Adrienne Adams for this race, but she's tweeting tonight, quote, today, voters made their voices heard, demanding a more affordable, more livable New York City. I hear them loud and clear. Zohran Mamdani built a formidable grassroots coalition, and I look forward to speaking with him in the days ahead about his ideas on how to ensure a safe, affordable, and livable New York City. And that just makes me think, you know, there were so many elected officials who endorsed Andrew Cuomo. And, you know, in the beginning of the night, sure, State Senator John Liu was at the Mamdani party and Brad Lander is at the Mamdani party and Jumaane Williams at the Mamdani party. But there is a whole lot of elected officials who lined up, even though they called for Andrew Cuomo to resign several years ago. There were many, many, many of them who lined up behind him. Do they automatically endorse the Democratic nominee? We don't know as of this point.
If you were the county chair of Brooklyn, which Mamdani won, or Queens, which Mamdani won, or Manhattan, which Mamdani won, I'm trying to imagine the process by which those people would now turn around and say, you know, sorry, we're not with you.
There's hundreds of thousands of people who clearly said Mamdani is our candidate. We want him to be the Democratic nominee. Do you go with him? In addition to all the elected officials who you can say maybe wouldn't make that much of a difference considering they clearly didn't do anything for Andrew Cuomo. But 32 BJ, massive union, 1199. Very big union.
Teamsters, 237.
Andrew Cuomo locked up so much of the union support here in New York City. What does this say about their ability to organize nowadays, their ability to knock on doors, get people out? HTC, these are unions in addition that also backed, 32BJ, DC 37, HTC, the Hotel and Casino Workers Union. These are unions that backed Eric Adams in 2021. I'm not going to say that they're going to turn around and start backing Eric Adams now, but perhaps they are free and clear to do so. We'll see if they end up backing the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it'll often happen in this case because, look, let's make no bones about it. A lot of the leaders of these county organizations and of these unions have been embarrassed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they were not able to deliver. They were not able to deliver their members. They were not able to deliver the party. They were not able to deliver the endorsement or make the endorsement successful. They're going to have to do a cleanup mission, and that might involve sort of running to the probable winner and saying, hey, we did it, or let's let bygones be bygones, and let's make something new going forward. And then, of course, there were a lot of unions that stood on the sidelines. For all of his talk about law and order, Andrew Cuomo did not have law enforcement unions support.
No, that's right. The PBA stayed out. In addition, the UFT, the teachers, there used to be 5 big unions we always talked about when it came to mayoral races or even governor's races. And that was, of course, the Building Service Workers, 32BJ, 1199, DC 37, the Municipal Workers Union.
The cops and the teachers.
Exactly. And the teachers, for one, just decided to stay on the sidelines completely. I wouldn't expect Mamdani to be all of a sudden be getting the PBA support.
Let's go to Mamdani headquarters, where Nydia Velázquez is about to speak.
We want to hear from Soren, so thank you so much. I am just so proud of all of you for the work that you put together to get to this moment and to work so hard for the city that we all love. So let me just say, hello, Long Island City. What a night. This campaign has shocked the world. But everyone in this room knew we were going to do it. You believed in this movement when the pundits said it couldn't be done. You knocked on doors, made calls, talked to neighbors, and tonight, we made history. Zoran Mandani brought people from every background together around a simple, powerful idea that New York City should be a city for everyone. Not just the wealthy, not just the well-connected. Everyone. He spoke to the struggles we all see. Rising rents, crumbling public services, working families barely hanging on, and he gave us something real to believe in. There is no special formula here. It's about listening to our people, to our community, and putting together
hopes before my own. And I know that those hopes extend beyond our 5 boroughs. There are millions of New Yorkers who have
declared the winner of the
mail you're in your mailbox, but as how I will lead as your mayor. I will be the mayor for every New Yorker. Whether you voted for me, for Governor Cuomo, or felt too disillusioned by a long, broken political system to vote at all, I will fight for a city that works for you, that is affordable for you, that is safe for you. I will work to be a mayor you will be proud to call your own. I cannot promise that you will always agree with me, but I will never hide from you. If you are hurting, I will try to heal. If you feel misunderstood, I will strive to understand. Your concerns will always be mine, and I will put your hopes before my own. And I know that those hopes extend beyond our 5 boroughs. There are millions of New Yorkers who have strong feelings about what happens overseas. I am one of them. And while I will not abandon my beliefs or my commitments, grounded in a demand for equality, for humanity, for all those who walk this earth, you have my word to reach further, to understand the perspectives of those with whom I disagree, and to wrestle deeply with those disagreements. Let me close with this. In these dark times, I know that it is harder than ever to keep faith in our democracy. It has been attacked by billionaires and their big spending, by elected officials who care more about self-enrichment than the public trust, and by authoritarian leaders who rule through fear. But above all, our democracy has been attacked from within. For too long, New Yorkers have strained to find a leader who represents us, who puts us first. And we have been betrayed time and again. After so many disappointments, the heart hardens. Belief becomes elusive. And when we no longer believe in our democracy, it only becomes easier for people like Donald Trump to convince us of his worth. For billionaires to convince us that they must always lead. As FDR said, democracy has disappeared in several other great nations. Not because the people disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of seeing their children hungry while they sat helpless in the face of government confusion and weakness. In desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. New York, if we have made one thing clear over these past months, it is that we need not choose between the two. We can be free and we can be fed. We can demand what we deserve. And together we have built a movement where everyday New Yorkers recognize themselves in our vision of democracy. Every new voter registered, that is faith renewed. Every voter who traveled through withering heat to the polls, that is faith renewed. And every New Yorker who sees solutions to the daily challenges they face in this campaign, that is faith renewed. Together, New York, we have renewed our democracy. We have given our city permission to believe again. And I pledge to you that we will remake this great city, not in my image, but in the image of every New Yorker who has only known struggle. In our New York, the power belongs to the people. And as I thank the people that are here with me today, and as I thank the incredible leaders who have long fought for those people, who are here across this crowd and across these 5 boroughs and standing next to me in the Attorney General of this state, in the public advocate of this city, in our Congresswoman, Nydia Velázquez, in our Controller, Brad Lander, and in every single person who believed in this campaign long before it was easy to do so. And you believed when it was difficult. We dreamt in the night, and we are now building in the dawn. That new day, the one that we have yearned for, the one that we have struggled for, the one that we have knocked for, have texted for, have called for, the one that we have obsessed over. That new day is finally here, my friends. And it is here because you have delivered it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And as I thank you, I must thank those who brought me into this world. I must thank my mother and my father. Mira and Mahmoud. And I must thank And I must thank my incredible wife, Rama Duaji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let us lead this city into one that is affordable for each and every New Yorker.